very big launch of something called
the Elder Law Risk Detector.
Elder Law Risk Detector. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah's going to tell us about it. Unfortunately, Secretary Prudhomme is not going to be able to make it today, but honestly, learning about this tool and how we can go back again to our communities and start to talk about this tool and maybe even start to use this tool is probably the most valuable, well, I shouldn't say that. It's going to be one of the valuable things that you can learn today. So, Sarah,
thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm sorry Secretary Prudhomme is unable to make it today, but I'm glad I have a few minutes to chat with you guys. I am Sarah Halsell. I am the State Legal Services Developer with the Florida Department of Elder Affairs in Tallahassee. And I've been in that job since 2005, and my whole role is to work on strengthening the legal services delivery system so that it has the capacity to meet the needs. And so all of what we're talking about today, we need to make sure we have a system in place that can help the most vulnerable elderly address those needs. And so I worked mostly with Older Americans Act funded civil legal services programs. We have a brand new website that I want to introduce to you today, and it really is kind of a brand new introduction because I haven't promoted this at all throughout the state, and I'll tell you why. We have a big coming soon aspect to the website. So I'll be back here in January, on January 31st, as part of the NCF Senior Advocacy Network group to do some training around this. And by that point, we'll have a true launch of this tool, but it is being used in other states, and so I think it's going to be something that we can talk about today. I love the idea of being able to give you a tool, something that you can actually use. We've gotten so much information today, and sometimes I know it can feel like, well, this is what everybody else is doing. What can I do? So who here in the room is in a position to help an older adult identify a problem? I mean, I think we all have friends, parents, grandparents. We all know someone who is just living life, and we all have problems, and sometimes those problems can only be solved in the courts or through help from an attorney. And so it's difficult for us to know, how do we help the people that we love, the people that we're serving? And so this is a tool that you can use to do that, and I think it's really wonderful. So we'll start with the website, floridaelderlaw.org. Okay, this is a website that is new. It has just been taken on by the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, and it's very straightforward. So I'm just going to do a little bit of clicking to kind of show you guys what it looks like. We'll start out by saying if you are a senior, you click. Oh, I'm going to use the mouse. This is really meant to be a pretty straightforward website that won't overwhelm. Unfortunately, the internet connection here is really slow, so this may not work the way that I'm hoping it will work. But I just want to show you the home for the tool, okay? Because when it goes live in the next couple of months, this is where you will go to access it. No, I don't think this is going to work. Oh, here we go. Okay. So seniors, get started. This is the online home for the Florida Senior Legal Helpline. Ellen Cheek, who's our next speaker, she is the Elder Justice Coordinator for the state of Florida and an advocate on the Senior Legal Helpline. There's a lot of information about the helpline here. There's a phone number here to call the Elder Helpline. What I love about this is it is civil legal services, but it is for seniors 60 years of age and older who are throughout the state, and it goes all the way up to 300% of federal poverty. And so that's important. A lot of civil legal services programs can't serve folks that are above 125%. So that's important to know. If you click Connect with the Legal Aid Organization, you put in your county, it'll give you the information of the civil legal provider in your county. And then additional resources, that is just some legal information that might be beneficial to you as a senior. If you are a caregiver, or if you're an advocate, there's a place on the advocate part as well, but I'm just going to use the caregiver site. There's something here, the Elder Legal Risk Detector, and you'll see that it says coming soon. Okay, so this is the online home for this tool. What that's going to take you to is a guided interview process. So So you as the caregiver, you as the advocate, you as the helper. So if you're a case manager and in a professional capacity, or if you're a family member, caregiver, this is something that you can use to help your loved one identify whether they have a problem that rises to the level where they may need to speak with an attorney. So I'm not going to click coming soon, but I'm going to take you to the risk detector that's being used in another. Florida's will look a little different, but it's going to be fairly similar, okay? So you will see here, we're just going to use the Doe language so we don't confuse the people who get the referral. But this is where the helper would put in their information. So if you're the caregiver, you would put your information in here. If you're the case manager, if you're the adult protective services investigator, whatever, the ombudsman, whatever your capacity, you would put your information in here, your organization, and your email address. Then you have the option of doing a standard or express. I'm just going to use the standard. I'm just going to give you a quick flavor of this. I'm going to quickly click through these things, but I want to show you what the possibilities are. This is where you would put the senior's information, okay, the person who you are helping. This is really wonderful for the most vulnerable among us. Now we know that seniors these days, it's not a solo demographic where we can speak uniformly about senior population. We have baby boomers, we have very tech savvy seniors, and then we have seniors who are 80 plus, 90 plus years old who don't have a computer, don't have access to this. And this is why this app is so wonderful. It can help people like that. The emphasis is on the helper, is on the caregiver. So this is where you would put their information. Again, we'll just leave the Doe language.
Why do you ask for the full date of birth if only the year will be enough?
Okay, so that's a good question. This is intended to result in an official referral to legal aid, okay? So if you were in Alachua County and you were a caregiver in Alachua County filling this out on behalf of, we'll say you're a professional caregiver filling it out on behalf of your client, the result would be that there would be a referral made to Three Rivers Legal Services here in Alachua County. Is Chris Larson still in the room?
No.
No, Chris had to leave. Chris is the executive director of Three Rivers Legal Services. She's very involved in the network. So that referral would go to her organization. We want that referral to be robust so that it can help legal services in their contact back to your client to make sure that, because there's going to have to be a screening for eligibility, and it just reduces the amount of questions that they have to ask on that end. So it's really like a warm handoff. We talk about how can we assist in making good referrals? Well, this is the way to do that, where we are just giving as much information as possible. You're a trusted person for that senior. You're in their home most likely. You're able to get this information, and it doesn't have to be asked again. Good question, though. Okay, so we're just gonna, there's gonna be some information. We'll just, keep household income, $500 annual, 5,000. We're gonna say that they rent. This is gonna be important for so if you're a case manager, you're in someone's home, they rent, and you're noticing there's a lot of disrepair. There's mold, there's holes in the floor. So what this can do is help you make a referral to legal services by asking questions, but then also allowing you as the case manager who's in the home to upload photos of the damage that you're observing. Okay, so then these are questions, and this could take a while, and I really don't want to take your time because it's Friday afternoon, and Ellen is going to be coming up soon to talk more about this, but this will give a little bit of foundation for what she's going to be talking about, which is an important expansion of this tool. Okay, so we're just going to click through. Now, everything is selected here, but this is where you would start to get an idea of the types of questions that would be asked. So we have housing, consumer debts, financial exploitation, healthcare, abuse, and neglect. So I'm going to deselect for the purposes, I'm trying to get through this quickly, and we'll have financial exploitation and abuse and neglect. So you could have a lengthy interview. You could have also chosen the express version on the front end of this, and it would be a lot a lot quicker. Okay, so these are some questions. I'm going to ask you questions about these things. Again, if you are in the home and you're in a position to see a document, that would be important for legal aid to get, so then you would want that to be part of something that could be uploaded through this app. Okay, are there papers that you don't understand? We're going to say yes. Have you received any documents? Yes. Sued by anyone? I don't know. Can you see this?
Or is it too small?
Oh, it's pretty small. I'm so sorry. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'll try to read you what it is that we're doing here. Do you know if there are any legal judgments or court orders against you? We're going to say, I don't know. Signs of banking fraud. Who reviews your bank statements? List all people. Okay, so we're just going to say erratic, unusual banking activities. Next. Okay, so this is hard to see, but this is going to be the tool that's available to you. Yes, you have a question?
As a caregiver, are you getting permission from the elder to do this?
Good question. Yes. So part of the interview is making sure that there is an understanding that this does not establish a relationship with a lawyer in and of itself. And part of it is making sure that they understand that this information will be shared with an attorney, and there's specific questions about providing consent. If there is no consent provided, then there is no submission of the data over to legal services. And I should say that all of this data is transferred through very secure processes. Okay. Client suddenly has a new best friend. That's what I just clicked. Okay. I just want to show you the result of this. Signs of theft. Maybe I should have done the quick one. But how many of you here are in a position on a regular basis to be in the home of a vulnerable senior where you might use something like this? Not too many of you? Okay. So, do we have ombudsmen in the room? Okay, so ombudsmen, you guys are in facilities. One thing that we're working on is having something similar to this, but targeted specifically to residents who live in long-term care facilities. And so this would be a tool that an ombudsman could use to make referrals over to civil legal services. I mean, it is now, but it will be specifically geared so that you don't have questions that really are unrelated to the needs of your particular clients. Do we have any APS workers in the room? APS investigators? Okay, and I have a meeting with Robert next week to tell him all about this. So here's your preview. So what we're hoping is that this will be a tool that APS investigators can use, because an APS investigator is in the room of somebody who has a problem. So it may not rise to the level where APS can help them. We know how that works. You have to rise to a certain level in order to be assisted by APS. So it may not be within their jurisdiction, but they're in a position to identify that there's a problem in this particular person's life. There was a reason APS was called. And so this might be an avenue for that APS investigator to use to get them to civil legal services. Okay? All right, I don't want to take too much time. I didn't realize it was going to, well, here we go. Okay. Is there anything like conditions or paperwork you can photograph or video to help describe the inputs you've given so far? I'm going to say no, but this is where you would say yes, and you would upload documents or photos. We're almost done with this interview. Any other information? So it's robust, okay? I mean, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of places that you can put in information. It may seem overwhelming, and just to remind you that there is the express option as well. Yes?
Question. Legal services is typically overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So in terms of doing this, how long before someone will actually get in touch with that elder, and do they have the capacity to serve after that?
Okay, so that's a good question. One of the things that we are responsible to do when we are talking about Older Americans Act funded programs, and specifically legal services that are funded through the Older Americans Act, is making sure that those resources are going to the most vulnerable people who who have the most in-depth legal needs. And so legal services has the responsibility to make sure that they're not a first come, first serve organization when it comes to the needs of the elderly in their community. So I could get into a lot about what that means, but this tool is going to help legal services providers identify their target client, which is the most vulnerable people in their community, the people who need assistance, to even kind of know what their problem is and that they might have a legal problem, because a lot of seniors don't know that their issue is a legal one. So, and it's a lot to ask of the case managers and the caregivers to be able to identify that those are potentially legal problems. So instead of what we've done for my 15 years in this work, which is to train groups on identifying legal issues and not giving too much information so that you feel like you're in a position to give legal advice, but instead to make a referral, now what we're saying is we're going to provide you with a tool that means you can walk through and be able to identify these issues on behalf of the person that you're helping without having to worry about, I don't know what legal aid does, I don't know what they can do to help with this person, I don't even know if this is a legal issue. This takes the guesswork out of all of that. So yes, legal services is overwhelmed, but their responsibility is to make sure they're serving the most needy. And so we think this tool is going to help them, and that's a resource allocation issue. Yes?
I have a couple part questions. First of all, if I'm a caregiver or an elder, can I input my scenario without me inputting my personal information? And then who am I being referred to? Am I being referred to like a legal aid or a Minnesota legal, or am I being referred to kind of a private attorney? And if I am being referred to a private attorney, are they paying, how are you selecting which ones will be on your website, and will they be paying a fee to be on your website?
Okay, so these referrals go specifically to legal services and Older Americans Act legal services providers. So when you go into, and this is not Florida's version, remember we're in development, we should have something by the end of this month. I'll be back in January to train you specifically on the Florida version. What that will look like is you identify, and so I selected kind of a New York provider because this is their particular tool, but at the beginning, the part that you didn't see is you selecting your partner. So you would say, I'm in Alachua County, and it will say, your partner is Three Rivers Legal Services. And then you know that the referral is going to Three Rivers. If you live in Hillsborough County, it would tell you your partner is Bay Area Legal Services. And then you would know that your information is going to Bay Area. If you are the caregiver, the person who's the helper filling this out, that's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that because it does ask specifically about your personal information. But do you know?
Well, the caregiver's personal information, I don't think is going to be so critical. Oh, yeah. But the personal information of the elder, the vulnerable adult, is critical, and here's why. And there's plenty of consent built into this. It's only if you want to make this referral. Once it's submitted with the senior's consent, then the legal services office who receives it goes through a very rigorous screening process to make sure this person is eligible. And one of the principal things we have to check for is a conflict check. So that means that we haven't served anyone adverse to that senior's interests. This is sort of legal ethics 101. But our screeners will go through that conflict check. We need pretty detailed information, including the date of birth, to do that in a state as huge and diverse as Florida.
Yeah.
So that's why we need it.
And one thing that you also should know is that when, and I'm going to show you this in just a minute, when the referral is built by this tool, it not only goes to legal aid, it will also, a copy of that will go to you as the user. So as the case manager, as the caregiver, as the ombudsman, you would, and that's why your email address is part of the initial interview, you will also get a copy of this, okay? So after filling out, and I was just clicking, but it didn't take a lot for this assessment to come back as this individual is at a level of high risk, okay? And so we're going to show the report. And if it will come up, it's usually a download, so it might take a second. You will see that essentially it goes through and says, these are the red flags that you identified in this interview. And because you identified these issues, we consider you to be of high risk. And that is now going to legal services, okay? And so then the consent happens, and this is sent over.
And I should
If
say,
their income is too high, Ellen, if their income is too high, then are they referred to a list of local attorneys that may be able to assist? Or?
So, and I was just talking with Chris Larson about this last night, because again, this is brand new. So Three Rivers is going to be one of our initial pilot sites, which means we're going to depend on this community to help us test this. But this referral will go to Three Rivers, for example, if you're in Alachua County. Three Rivers then, through their screening process, will call back the client and go through a screening. So an attorney won't call back, it will be a screening. And the screener will then go through the process of, I see that your income is this, unfortunately you're not eligible for our services, and then they would make a referral to the private bar at that point. Okay, or sometimes it's an administrative agency or whatnot. So there's just other options. If they're within 300%, it may be that there's a referral at that point to the Senior Legal Helpline. We hope this is all very streamlined, and the delivery system as a whole really works hard on making sure that the referrals happen in a way that makes a lot of sense. So yes, for someone who's over income, they still will receive a call back. There's not a black hole here, unless they don't have voicemail or something set up and they don't answer their phone, which we've been telling people all day not to do. Okay, so this is the Word document. Here's the client information. The overall finding is high. It goes through, specifically we clicked on financial exploitation and elder abuse, and it goes through the red flags, has actual red flags, and that's the information. If there were photos or videos, there would be some notes about that, any additional notes, and then it says next steps. Okay? So there's a transcript, essentially, of everything that's been done that's sent over. So you can see that this is so much better than just giving out a phone number to legal aid, which is really, what we've had in the past. It's very tricky to know what does legal aid do, what are the issues that can help with, what are the legal problems that I have or the person that I'm helping has. So anyway, we think this is really gonna help all of us as a community take care of each other. And so then I'm gonna just pass everything over to Ellen. Thank you for giving me this few extra minutes.